Okay. Welcome to the Ask Faleskini podcast with a guest. I'm proud to present David Fradin from Los Gatos, California. David is a product success manager at Spice Catalyst. He's also a distinguished professor of practice and advisor at Manipal University. With over 50 years of experience in technology industry, David has trained thousands of managers worldwide and has worked as a product leader at companies like Apple and HP. He has authored several books on product success, innovation, and design. David, please tell us more about yourself. What is your story?
Well, I was, in the words of Jethro Bodine, who was an actor of the Beverly Hillbillies, I was not found under a cabbage leaf. I was born in Detroit, Michigan, the son of a plumber and a son of my mother had a master's degree in English. I went to honors high school, Cass Tech, then on to the University of Michigan. Started the flying club at the University of Michigan, which has trained over 5,000 pilots. Many of them are now airline pilots, and including the head of the Blue Angels. Then started a nationwide student organization in favor of an American supersonic transport, and later in favor of understanding science and technology. Ended up lobbying before and testifying before Congress. Moved the Student Association after I graduated to Washington, D.C., lobbied Congress to build a space shuttle, lobbied Congress for national energy independence and a reduction of our dependency on fossil fuels. From there, I went on to Minnesota, where I became the second environmental mediator in the world and helped resolve the major environmental dispute over reserve mining, dumping taconite tailings into Lake Superior. Then Hewlett Packard moved me to California to help them site new facilities around the country. And I introduced word processing to the corporate PR department because it was the only department of the company that knew how to type at the time. And that enabled me to slide over into product management at the Information Networks division. And then Apple recruited me because I was a trained HP product manager. And my responsibility was to bring the first hard disk drive on a PC to market, which I did. It was a very cheap hard drive. It only cost $3,600, and it had a massive size of 5 megabytes. And nobody could figure out why they would ever need 5 megabytes. So in today's dollars, I think that would be about $20,000 for that those 5 megabytes. And senior management at Apple noticed that I knew how to manage. So they asked me to take over as the group product manager for one of the two profitable product lines of the company called the Apple III, which is a business computer built on top of the successful Apple II. And after I'd been on the job for about 3 weeks, Steve Jobs convinced the executive board to cancel the product line because he, at that time, didn't believe that he should have any competition for a product he had yet to ship called the Macintosh. So about a week later, the president called me into his office and he says, "Dave, we canceled the Apple III product line." I said, "I know you did that, and I'm responsible for it. You didn't bother to ask my opinion." He says, "Well, we got about $20 million in piece parts, which today would probably be about $200 million, spread between our manufacturing facilities in Cork, Ireland, Dallas, Texas, and in Singapore. What should we do about it?" And I said, "What do you mean we, paleface?" And he didn't get the joke. So I had to explain to him back in the 50s, there was a television show called The Lone Ranger. And he was a masked man, and he had a silver bullet on his waist, and he rode a white horse called Trigger, and he had a Indian sidekick by the name of Tonto. And when I tell this story to people from India, I have to say an American Indian sidekick. And they're galloping through the desert, and they're surrounded by 10,000 yelling, screaming Indians, American Indians. And Lone Ranger turns to his American Indian sidekick, Tonto, and says, "Tonto, we're surrounded by 10,000 yelling, screaming Indians, and all they want to do is scalp us." And Tonto says, "What do you mean we, paleface?" So Scully laughed, and the other people in the room giggled. And I said, I have all the responsibility for this multi-million dollar product line, 1,800 dealers around the world, but I have no authority. And I explained to him how I had to go through 8 levels of management just to do a promotion that would have an impact on the floor of a dealership when someone walked in wanting to buy a business computer. And I told him the story of a friend of mine, Kelly Johnson, who headed up the Skunk Works program for Lockheed. And because he had full authority along with responsibility, could design, build, and ship a extremely complex aircraft in only 18 months compared to the rest of Lockheed, which would take 7 years. I told him the story of the IBM PC, where the super mainframe sales people at IBM kept killing the personal computer projects at IBM. So IBM moved the personal computer group to Boca Raton, Florida, which is about as far away as you can get from IBM headquarters in New York, but stay in the same time zone. And I told him a couple of other stories of authority and responsibility. And Scully says, yeah, I agree with you because I have a Canon personal copier on my desk. And when I was at Pepsi, he was president of US Pepsi. He had a cocktail party in his house up in Winchester, New York, north of New York City. And one of his neighbors was the president of Xerox. So Scully said he asked the president of Xerox, how come you don't have a personal computer? I mean, after all, Xerox never does anything original. But the president of Xerox said, we put 100 of our best engineers on the project, and we're going to ship in about a year. Canon put 10 of their best engineers on it, and they're shipping now. So that shows you the power of small independent groups that have full authority commensurate with responsibilities. So he asked me to make me a proposal, which I did, and presented on July 15th, 1983 to the executive committee, and offered several options for the product line to the executive committee. And the climax of that meeting was with Floyd Kwame, who was at the time the vice president of sales and marketing for Apple. He later went on to be a very successful venture capitalist at Kleiner Perkins, a very preeminent venture capital firm here in Silicon Valley, and later a technology and science consultant to President George H.W. Bush. Floyd said, if we pick option 1, which was to shut the product line down, or option 3, which would let the market decide when they're going to stop buying the Apple III, which is what I was pushing for, and a dealer called you, what would you say? Now, everybody in the room was cognizant that the company had values. It was called Apple Values. Values like empathy for the customer, good management, don't be afraid to make mistakes, things like that. And so I said, well, if you let the market decide, which is my thing that I support, because we've got a lot of MBAs here at Apple, and they're not all smarter than what the market is going to do. Let the market make those decisions. Then I would tell the dealers we'll continue to develop, enhance, and service and support and market the Apple III as long as the market continues to buy the product. But if you choose the first option, which is to shut the product line down, which is what Steve Jobs wants to do, I'll give your phone number, Floyd, to that dealer, and he can call you. And everybody laughed. And in the back of the room was a lady by the name of Ann Bowers, who was VP of HR. And I'm pretty sure she was behind the effort several years earlier to have Apple come up with a set of Apple values, because she was also the VP of HR for Intel and married to Bob Noyce, the president, one of the founders of Intel. And Intel had a bunch of values, which was based upon the HP way, HP's set of values, which is very important not only in the success of products, but also the success of companies and the success of individuals, is that they have a set of values and they follow those values. So they asked me to take over the product line. They gave me a $4 million budget, 17 people. They say, go do whatever you have to do. We sold 25,000, one out of every 3 Apple IIIs ever sold in the world. Generated about $600 million in gross income, about $200 million in profits, which was enough to keep about 1,000 to 1,500 highly paid Apple employees on the payroll. And then I shut the product line down when I could no longer get internal support from the company. And also had sold off all of that inventory I mentioned earlier. I shut it down the same day that the Apple IIc was introduced in April of 1984. It didn't affect the stock price in comparison to when Steve took over the Lisa project a few months later and shut it down. The Apple stock price plummeted. And then they gave me a nice severance package, and I left the company at that point. So that was back in 1985. I then brought a text-to-speech software to market called Smooth Talker for an independent software developer. Worked on more hard disk drives for Apple and PC products. Worked on a documentation company, and then started my own companies in the 1990s. And I've been on my own as an entrepreneur since then. I started Spice Catalyst about 12 years ago to enhance the chances of product success, and have trained over 12,000 product managers and product marketing managers worldwide. My book, Successful Product Design and Management, which is published by Wiley, is used by about 1,000 executives a year at 2 prestigious universities in India to train product managers. And my primary client is a Cisco. I've trained about half of Cisco's product managers worldwide.
Okay, that is impressive. What I would like to know is you said that Canon had huge advantage over Xerox just because they had a small independent team. And you also said that before they shut up the Apple III, you have 17 people, if I'm correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So basically, you had small and independent team that could do the project for you. What would you recommend for the small companies to how they should go about product development? Are there any universal rules about product development that they should stick to? Where should they start? My experience in product development is that if you give people too much independence, they will develop perfect product, but perfect for their needs or their desires or their imagination, not perfect for market. And if we continue, we now all know about proof of concept, proof of product, and then you go in a proof of market. So how fast should developer go and try to market it or get feedback from the market? And what is the best way for small companies to get feedback from the market? Because you said that you had 1,800 authorized dealers already. So for you, it was much easier than for a small company that is just starting.
Now, the key is in the mnemonic SPICE, SPICE. S is have a product market strategy. I'll come back to that in a moment. P is having a repeatable process for each of your products. I is have the information available so that you can make intelligent decisions. C is understanding your customer, which is the first part of your product market strategy. That is the strategy of your product in the market. Now, keep in mind that a market is like a grocery store where you go in and buy something. Marketing is different. That's getting people to go to that grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
And the E in SPICE stands for having your employees or your consultants have almost all of the 130 skill sets or competencies necessary for product success, which I describe in my Wiley book. So the first thing they should do is take 6 months. Don't hire any engineers and don't start developing any products, and forget about this innovate fast and fail quickly. Forget about what some investors in Silicon Valley says, ready, fire, aim. What you should do is aim and then get ready and then fire.
Mm-hmm.
And getting ready, you put together a 32-piece product market strategy, which starts with understanding, and I mentioned this earlier, what is it that your customer wants to do? And that work that I described earlier, which I'll describe more in a moment, is based upon a Harvard professor's books on outcome-based innovation. And then it became more granular when Tony Ulrich at Stratagem writes about jobs to be done in his book. And I propose neither of those are granular enough. What you really need to do is understand what is it that your customer wants to do. How do they want to do it? When do they want to do it? Where do they want to do it? What's standing in their way? How important is getting that thing done? And then how satisfied are they with the current solution? So if you've got a product idea for a really difficult problem of what people want to do, and you can build features that help them do that better, faster, which is called innovation. If customers are satisfied with the way they're doing it now, then you're not going to get any movement in the marketplace. But if they're not satisfied with things that they're doing now, then you'll get a lot of movement. Classic example of that would be Uber, which the fellow that started that company was in Los Angeles, and he could not get a taxi cab. And he would call up a taxi cab, and the taxi cab wouldn't show up. And then he'd call him up again. They say, "Oh, well, it's going to be there in 10 minutes." And the taxi cab would never show up. But with the advent of the smartphone, he could automate the whole thing over a smartphone app, and hence the company Uber was built. Now, if he was living in Washington, D.C. or New York, where I have lived and worked before, if you sneeze and raise your hand to your nose, 5 taxis will pull up because you hail a cab by raising your hand. And he would not have seen the need for that. So again, you go out and observe what it is and or companies want to do, why do they want to do it, where do they want to do it, how do they want to do it, and so forth. And then you do interviews of about 40 to 80 prospective customers in your target markets, asking them questions about the who, what, when, or why. And then you get a representative sample of your target market and you survey them. And from the survey results, you can then extrapolate from that as to what is the total market, what's the total available market that you could reach. You can have some idea of pricing and have some idea now you can project out what it's going to cost to build that product with its product features. And you can then calculate your potential return on investment. So if you have to go out and raise capital, you now have a firm bottom-up support mathematically, quantitatively, as to why your product is going to be successful. Then you go on and you do your market research, your competitive research, your product positioning. You define the personas for your target market, your distribution strategy, your marketing strategy, your sales strategy, your support, service, and strategies, your pricing strategy, your prices, and then you can develop what we used to call at Hewlett-Packard a feature, advantages, and benefits chart for each of the features of your product. And you notice you're not going out asking people what they need or what they want because they can't tell you. If Henry Ford had gone out and asked people on the street in Dearborn, Michigan, not far from where I grew up in Detroit, if you ask people if they would like an affordable car, most people at that time had said, "I don't know what a car is," so of course not. If the internet existed and he did a keyword search to see how many people were searching for cars, he would have found that there is no market whatsoever for cars because nobody was searching for cars. People have to understand what their problem is first and what the solution could be before they can tell you what they need or what they want. So if he had just sat on a stoop of a bar in Dearborn and watched people beat their horses to go faster through town, pulling their carriages with goods, he would then understand why people would say to him, "No, I don't want a car, I just want a faster horse." So it's key to then be able to put together your product positioning, and those are the major key elements of the product market strategy.
Okay, can I just summarize what you just explained so that the listeners will understand? The most important thing is forget about time to market and take your 6 month and work on 42 product market strategies so that you know where are you going with your product and only then the programmers or or technical guys should start developing it. But before that, you need to identify the customer's frustration that you're addressing, because customer needs to be frustrated with something that is already available on the market. Either you're developing substitute or a next generation of product that is already available, or some kind of mix, or something completely new, like a smartphone that did not exist basically before Apple came out with iPhone. Of course, there were Blackberries and all this stuff, but the smartphone with a touch screen and all this stuff was something completely different, innovation. And then you said, first start with 40 to 80 interviews of prospective clients, and only when you get feedback from there, start with a larger survey. And this larger survey will get you the information, how much budget you need, and if you need outside investors, or you can do it on your own. And also because you will have price and approximate estimated how to come to market, you will be able to get investor or funded within existing company. And you will, so the person in charge will also be able to calculate how much turnover the product will generate. So that is your bottom-up approach that is completely different from a mainstream go there, try, do a prototype, go out on the market and fail and all this stuff. So the idea is, if you fail with your prototype, fail on paper or on a computer text, not after investing 20 or 40 million in the development of some new technology that nobody cares about. Am I correct?
Yep, you nailed it.
Okay, that is, I think, extremely useful. Should we go into another thing that is important? You're a consultant. When should we engage in a consulting company to help us with our development, and why should we engage?
Well, I mentioned earlier that a successful product or a successful service, a service, by the way, is a product, it's just intangible, while a product is a tangible, something that you can touch. To have a successful service or product, you have to have about 130 competencies or skill sets. Chances are that no one individual or no small group of people will have all of those skill sets. I've consulted with a number of companies over the years. A few of them, or I should say many of them, have an extremely arrogant founder who thinks he knows everything, refuses to take any advice. And in every single case, those companies have gone out of business, or they have fired the founder because he thought he knew it all. So it's a team approach. It's a team sport of having a successful product and a successful company. And you have to have all the skill sets necessary to make the product successful.
Okay. And should companies start with workshops? How should they go about it? How should they what would you recommend? We have now a lot of startup funders, and we have a lot of existing companies that would like to start innovation and develop and redevelop products, especially now because the market conditions are changing, and I think that market is more and more demanding all the time. How should companies go about it? Should they purchase a book? Should they send their people to workshop? Should they hire a consultant? What's your advice? What would be your, let's say, first-hand advice, because you were involved so many times in that? Where should the funders start? You said there are so many arrogant funders. I know I was one of them, and for many times. So where should we start? Where should is there a book? Is there a workshop? What would you recommend? Where to start?
Well, I think they should start with either by building and selling great products book and or by just a successful product design and management workbook from Wiley. Ideally, have a series of workshops with a consultant, and my company is available to do that, and I have consultants worldwide. And walk through, for example, starting with one of my workshops or courses on how to write a product market strategy, but don't do it in an esoteric way. Use the workshop to write the product market strategy for the product for the company. Then go on and do the engineering and the design and building the product. And then when you're ready to start planning for taking it to market, then do one of my marketing fundamentals workshops and go through all of the steps of that to put together the marketing and sales and support and service plans. And if you follow that, you're developing your team's skill sets and competencies in parallel with doing the planning necessary for product success.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, first, my listeners should read the book, then attend the workshop, and then hire a consultant. Is that correct order?
Well, you can have the consultant as part of the team as you move along.
Okay, so I will include links to the books that you mentioned in the description below. And I would like to thank you for all the insights. But before we finish, I would like to know if there's anything else you would like our listeners that are planning or are already developing a product, what would be the best that they can take from this interview? Yeah. Are there any quick tips or trade secrets that you didn't share already that you can share now?
Well, one that I alluded to in that story about Floyd Kwame asking me, what would I do if they cancel the product line? And I said it was in conflict with Apple values. I think one of the most important things for a product and a company to have is a set of values and a set of values that they follow. And when I was writing my book, Building and Sailing Great Products, I did a study of the first 500 members of the Fortune 500 list from 1965, and only a couple hundred of them are still in business today. They were and I put together 3 columns against all their names. Did they have values? Did they follow those values? And almost without exception, those that had no values or did not follow the values that they had, they went out of business. Those that had values and followed those values, like Hewlett Packard, are still in business today and are still successful. So the importance of values is when everybody gets into a room to make a decision as they put together, for example, their product market strategy or their marketing plan, they're all coming from the same place. And the same thing applies to the individuals that work at that organization. They have to have a set of values which are similar to the ones that the company has and that they subscribe to it. And then you minimize conflict considerably.
Okay, so the key to really good development, or maybe not the key, but the base that a company needs and the foundation is company's value. So founders should first think about the company's value before they start developing products. Is that correct?
Yep. What are the company values?
Okay. So I will put the links to where people can reach you. Thank you very much for all these insights and hands-on advice that I think is the most important. Thank you for sharing your experiences and your stories. And thank you, David, for being my guest tonight.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.